think I got everything set up, so we're going to start off with our movie puzzle. Get that going. 10 minutes on the clock. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Got a short name. This could either be very easy or very difficult. It's not. I thought I had 6 letters in the last name. I don't know. Yeah, if I had to guess the answer right off the bat, I'd say it's probably Emma Stone, but 12 Years a Slave. Chiwetel Ejiofor doesn't fit. Lupita Nyong'o doesn't fit. Brad Pitt doesn't fit. Michael Fassbender doesn't fit. Paul Dano doesn't fit. Who else is in that? Damn. Yeah, this might be rough. Something like that. So that definitely takes away my Emma Stone guess. Sin City 2005. Let's see. Mickey Rourke, Jessica Alba, Bruce Willis? No. Carlo Gugino is in that. Clive Owen? No, that's too many letters. Brittany Murphy was in it. Oh, who played? Oh, Jackie Boy was Benicio del Toro. That doesn't fit either. Oh, this might be a rough one. Disaster Artist? So that was James Franco and Seth Rogen. 3-letter. I don't know, man. Andy Dufresne. Tim Robbins. Oof. Robbvins. Yeah. Alright, there we go. We got there eventually. Dom Toretto. Vin Diesel. Oh, it's Diesel. We got like 3. Yeah, I butchered Zach Galifianakis' last name. That's fine. Oh, that's right. Nick Offerman was in Sin City. He played like a small supporting role. And Zac Efron was in The Disaster Artist? Okay. I guess he was one of the guys in the other movie. The Hours, Claire Danes. Alright. 12 Years a Slave, Sarah Paulson was in that. And then Academy Award winners, we got Mark Rylance and Mira Sorvino. Yeah, I know Mark Rylance won for Bridge of Spies. Mira Sorvino, I'm not 100% what she won for. Best Actress in a Supporting Role for Mighty Aphrodite. Alright. So from 3 letters, we were able to figure out who it was and keep our streak alive. So. Alright, I'm gonna get into some writing. I don't know how far I'll get, but do what we can. So I have kind of an idea. I'm gonna just drop that way down because we need some space. So I've been thinking about what we left off last week on with the end of the San Francisco section of the story. So at this point we have Helene and Margaret working together. Helene's trying to find the witches that have been abducted. And we know some plot points of things that need to happen, but we didn't have it like specifically down what was going to happen. So one of the things we started talking about last week, and I think we were on the right path, I just wasn't able to think it all the way through, but when I had some time to think about it and consider like how it would play out, I think some of the stuff we started talking about will work pretty well. Major! Hi, hello, how are you doing today? You're hanging in there? Uh, yeah, I am hanging on by a thread. I took another sick day today, and I'll probably take one tomorrow, because I did not sleep much last night. Because, yeah, I am a little stuffy. I've been blowing my nose all day, and yeah, it's not been very fun, but I'll try not to sniffle in anyone's ear too much and try to mute myself if I have to cough or sneeze. So if I go quiet for a little bit, that's probably what's happening. Okay, right, so we have... You're gonna be playing some Fortnite modding. Multitasking. Alright, sounds good. Get some dubs, Major. Alright, so Helene's gonna set off to go save the witches. Leaving Margaret behind. So Helene's gonna go to where they're being held in a warehouse on the bay. Um, on a dock slash pier. So, as I was thinking about this, what I decided on that I think is going to work in trying to figure out what Margaret could do to try to help but ultimately make things worse is if all the action is taking place in a warehouse on a pier or overhanging over the water, if Margaret casts some sort of spell to have the water disturb the pier, she could do it thinking she's going to slow down the hunters on their way to try to get Helene, but she could inadvertently cause issues with the entire structure, and that would cause issues for Helene as well. So that's kind of where I landed on what I think she would try to do. And I think it fits in with her being a green witch and trying to manipulate, like, elemental things, natural things. So if we have them on the water, that will play into it. So Margaret doesn't want to lose track of Helene. She sticks around. Observes from a distance. So Helene is going to go up to the building, use magic to get in. You have to update 6 gig with 12 minute. Dang. Yeah, I was kind of surprised this morning. I was watching a stream of somebody playing Rivals and they were talking about having issues with that update. So I checked my updates in Epic and I saw both Rivals and Fortnite updated. I think while my computer was asleep. So I was like, anytime I can get those done while I'm not using the computer is always good. So Helene uses magic to get into the building, save the captured witches, discovers the hunters have been performing experiments on them. Ooh, Major. I got something for you while you're waiting if you want. Kind of. I got bored because I've been stuck at home sick. So I decided to put together my picks for what the cast would be. So I put together a bunch of pictures of the cast so we have them all in one place. So I have kind of a view of what I want the cast to be. Because a lot of times, like, I know a lot of different writers have different views on writing for particular people, but for me, I always find it easier to try to write with a particular person in mind. Just because, like, especially people that I've seen a lot of stuff of, like, I can hear their voice a lot easier and, like, see their mannerisms. So, yeah, for me, just having a visual reminder of who I imagine in our main different roles is going to help. So, yeah. This is our cast. For now. It might change. I don't know. Yeah. I should post that in the Discord at some point. I'll try to remember to do that. Okay. Anyway, back to writing stuff. So Helene uses magic to get into the building. She starts trying to save the captured witches, discovers the hunters have been performing experiments on them. The hunters discover Helene is freeing the witches. Okay. Noticing towards Helene. So this is where Margaret is going to use some magic. So I also need... Yeah, yeah. Alright, so noticing the hunters heading towards Helene, Margaret decides she should try to slow them down to give Helene more time. What am I thinking? What's the word I'm thinking of? I keep thinking of turbulence, but I always associate that more with, like, air rather than water. Yeah, choppiness is kind of right. Oh, okay, pylon, that's the word I was thinking of. Yeah, it doesn't ultimately matter what we say here. Sends him to the post. Alright, so Margaret sees the hunter is heading towards Helene. Margaret goes down, casts spell, water starts slamming into the post, causing the building to shake. Helene tries to continue helping free the witches. The hunters are slowed, because initially we want to give her false hope. So we want to show that what she's trying to do is what's happening. So at first, like I said, we want to appear like it's happening the way she wants it, but the waves continue to hit the post. Like we see one or two start to break, and then the building starts to collapse. Alright, so Helene is resolved to save as many of the imprisoned witches as she can, but this ultimately puts her in danger. With the hunters trapped in the collapsed building, no longer a threat, so Margaret doesn't have to overcome her fear of being captured by the hunters. Margaret goes into the water after Helene and pulls her from the wreckage. Leaving some of the imprisoned witches behind. So this, I think this hits a lot of the plot points that we wanted. That Margaret is trying to help. She does for a minute, but she ultimately causes things to go worse. But with Helene trying to save all the witches and not being able to, she's going to be furious with Margaret. So that's going to cause Margaret to ultimately leave. And blames her for the witches that died / drowned. But Margaret was just trying to help her, because if she didn't, the hunters would have been able to get to Helene and probably stop her. So Helene tells Margaret to leave her alone. And then at that point, some of the hunters emerge from the wreckage. The building. And start to pursue Helene, Margaret, and the now escaped witches. Because, like I said, we need Margaret to be seen by the hunters. And that's going to lead her to shapeshift her face once again. So Margaret runs away. I think we might actually have... We might not show what happens with Helene. And then once she's out of danger, Margaret will shapeshift her face again. Okay, I think that kind of clarifies what I want the end of this section to look like. Let's see. There's an ad running right now, so good timing. I'm gonna go blow my nose real quick, and I will be right back. Major, you're in charge. Very nice, Major. Major the Rager. Yeah, you are. I'll join in the rave. Yeah, I can only do a digital rave right now, though, because if I tried to do anything physical, I would probably pass out, because breathing is not easy at the moment. Alright, I've blown my nose. So, next thing. Yeah, no live raving for me. So what I'm thinking is, I'm actually going to switch the next two sections around, so we actually pick up with Helene following that. Um, so one of the reasons is I think it's an easier transition because we're staying in the same physical location and jumping ahead in time, and it's easier to show the time jump in a big city than it would be a farm or ranch in the Southwest United States. And also, if we don't have Bryn showing up to Margaret, then we would actually split up, Bryn showing up to talk to Helene, and then Bryn showing up to Margaret. So it splits up two of the scenes with her as well. So I think this will work better in kind of the flow of what we're trying to do. Nope. Don't want to redo all that. Okay. Pick back up with her, Helene, in San Francisco in the 60s. So I think we stay in San Francisco with Helene, because even though things didn't go right, she was still able to save some of the witches, and the where the hunters were operating out of ended up getting destroyed. So I feel like overall it's kind of a net positive. So I think she stays in San Francisco. Rad, hi, hello, how are you? Welcome in. Hope your day is going well. Exactly. Well, the good news is I didn't have to go into work today. Bad news is I've been sick. So, yeah. Some good, some bad. So I've been going through, there's a book called 1001 Movies to See Before You Die, and I've been going through it, all the movies I haven't yet seen in it. And right now I'm up to 1959, so almost 1960s. But one of the last movies I watched, I think it was earlier this week, was actually Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which is set in San Francisco in 1958, 1959. So I feel like I have a better idea of what that city looks like in that area than in the previous era we're in there. Told me to get well soon, I didn't listen. Yeah, sorry, Rad. Sometimes, I was trying, but I don't always have final say. Alright, so the end of the previous scene is going to be Margaret shapeshifting her face and leaving. And then we jump ahead to the 1960s in San Francisco. Helene is still there. Unacceptable. Sorry, Rad. Okay, so then Helene has a vision of Bryn. Sorry, Rad, you don't get to post links. But yes, Major is dope. Haha, I beat you to it. So I'm starting to think there should be something that triggers Helene having a vision of Bryn. Well, I think Bryn would... Yeah, because... if everything that happens in kind of this back part of it is a plan by Bryn, then yeah, she would be initiating it. Oh, I'm a Link? Does that mean I'm in... I don't even know any Legend of Zelda jokes that I could even make. Or I don't know enough about Legend of Zelda to make any jokes about it being a Link. Yeah, I think I played the original Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo way back when. Um, yeah, I think that's the only Zelda I've ever played. I think I've watched some streams with people playing it, but never got into it myself. Alright, yeah, so Helene has a vision of Bryn, recognizes her as a seer who was tracking her earlier. Because when she meets up with... I don't remember. Oh, Letitia. That's what we named her. So when Helene was with Letitia, she showed her a vision of Bryn. So Helene remembers her from that. So on getting this vision, Helene decides to go confront Bryn. So we also established in that previous scene with Letitia and Helene finding who was tracking Helene and finding that it's Bryn, that Bryn knew they were able to see her. So what would Bryn have been up to in the last, 200 years? Okay, so if we have... When we first meet Bryn, she's living in the Carolinas and running a tavern there. So if we're jumping ahead to the 1960s, if she leaves there and we have Helene in San Francisco, what if Bryn went to Las Vegas? Because I feel like the 60s is when was Las Vegas first casino built? 1906. So yeah, Las Vegas would have been well established by this point. So maybe Bryn set up there. I like the idea of her now being wealthy. And the other thing we can have is because Las Vegas is in the middle of the desert, when she leads Helene to the trap by the hunters, their secret base, whatever, can be somewhere in the desert. I think that tracks. Living in Las Vegas, is now wealthy. Owns a casino slash bar. So then Helene shows up to confront her. Bryn knew she was coming. Because like you said, when we find out later that Bryn was orchestrating all this, it'll be kind of more real that she was leading Helene to her at this point. That it wasn't just Helene following a trail. Alright, so Helene goes to confront Bryn. Bryn knew she was coming. Helene wants to know why she's been searching for her. Like we said, Bryn all but teases Helene for not knowing, and then ends up telling her about Margaret. But Helene doesn't initially believe her. Why else would she be watching Helene? So this is going to be a slight change from before. Yeah, it's actually going to be backwards. So Helene tells Bryn she had a spell to protect from being tracked. Bryn rebuts. There are other ways to track someone, but I don't think she needs to give any more specifics than that. And ultimately, Bryn shows Helene Margaret from over the years. And Helene is obviously overwhelmed at this. Bryn tells Helene she's been friends with Margaret for hundreds of years, going back to England, Ireland. Knows Margaret came to America, escaped from being hunted by the hunters. And the only way she'll help Helene find her is if she gives up fighting the hunters. Helene declines. She has to fight the hunters to the end. Yeah, obviously Helene would be conflicted by that, but she would still ultimately decide she needs to fight against the hunters more than, or her want to end the hunters is more than reunited with Helene. Alright, Bryn, pretending to be reluctant, tells Helene she discovered the hunter's secret base. She tells Helene she'll take her there, but only will take her there, only her. Yeah, she doesn't want anything to do with the hunters. So, thinking she's closer to her goal, Helene goes along with it. Bryn drives Helene up a wall. I mean, you're not wrong. But she also drives her into the desert to a remote site. And ultimately leads her into a trap where Helene is captured by the hunters. But what about to desert? That would probably be better. Alright, so we end the sequence with Helene being captured by the hunters, imprisoned at the secret base. Is Bryn driving a sketchy van? No, I'm thinking like, if it's the 60s, like she could be driving a really cool car. Okay, we can delete that, delete that. Station. Here, let's go. Coolest cars of the 60s. Ooh, we got the early Mustangs. We got the big 50s cars that are still around. You got the, I believe it is the Aston Martin, like the early James Bond Aston Martin. Yeah, I'm thinking a car that looks kind of like this. The seats in the back that face backwards. Maybe. Yeah, I'm imagining a car that looks kind of like this. Without, you know, the old guy sitting behind it in the road back there. (1960) Plymouth Fury convertible. So, yeah. Okay. So then we leave off here. Helene captured by the hunters. And we pick up around the same time. Yeah. Okay, so 1960s, Southwest US. Maybe they get malted milkshakes on the way. Maybe. Um, okay, yeah, and then this sequence, we're switching out Bryn. So, how do I want to get into this sequence? Because we could just show. Oh, yeah, and we came up with name for her significant other, so we actually have a name instead of just saying Margaret's significant other. Nayeli? Okay, I already put it in there. Good. So do we just want to start off showing them there, or do we want that to be more of a reveal? I think we have it be more of a reveal. Yeah. All right. So we are going to have Margaret's living on a farmer ranch. Then we're going to have Serafina and Letitia show up. Does she know who they are? She knows who Serafina is. Alright, yeah, we're going to have to change a lot of this if it's Serafina instead of Bryn showing up. Alright, yeah, so Serafina and Letitia show up. Margaret recognizes Serafina. Serafina asks Margaret if she knows where Helene is. Margaret tells her she doesn't, hasn't seen her for decades. And asks Serafina why she would be asking her that. Anyway. Alright, so all that stuff is specific to Bryn, so we don't need it for this new version of it. So we'll throw it down here in our archive. Yeah, this is actually going to be part of that too. So Margaret asked Serafina why she's there, why would she be asking her if she knows where Helene is. And Serafina tells Margaret they've lost Helene. Before I continue on, I need to blow my nose again. Sorry. So I'm gonna put up words on stream, go blow my nose, and get something to drink. And as always, Major's in charge. I'm gonna start words on stream. Good luck, have fun. 3, 2, 1. Go for it! Well done, Major's hard carrying. Rad and Vidzy, you're also doing awesome. I'm gonna start another round and go get some more to drink. 3, 2, 1, ready. Let's go. Major stealing my words. Well done, team. Got 2 stars on both of them tonight. Major, as expected, hard carrying, 87 points. Well done. Rad not far behind, 65. Vidzi coming in strong with 25, and I helped. I had 6 points. Also, Vidzi, hi, hello, welcome in. Hope you're having a good day. Good job, Rad. All the 5-letter words. It's good? Nice. Lurking and cooking dinner, we eat now? Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you being here. Hope you have something delicious. So I was thinking about this. Can you believe it's rated out after we rated her? The audacity. That was funny. Major, I think you had gone to sleep on Tuesday's stream at the end of it. We rated over to Vidzi. We posted some like emotes and stuff, and then Vidzi immediately rated over to, I think she said her cousin, but I think they had like an auto raid or happened to be raiding over to like the Bunny's channel, so we ended up at the Bunny channel. What was I thinking? Her cousins are rabbits. All right. Because she's silly bunny. Exactly. Alright, so we have Margaret working on a farmer ranch. We have Serafina and Letitia show up. Margaret recognizes Serafina, but not Letitia. So, Serafina, not wanting to beat around the bush, asks Margaret if she knows where Helene is. Yeah, this needs to be more confrontational. Uh... Okay, so... Margaret would question her in response. Because at this point she's changed her face again, so she would assume Serafina wouldn't recognize her, so she asks her, like, why are you asking me this? Plays dumb. Sage! Hi, hello, welcome in. You missed the rave earlier. But, hi, hello, welcome in. Hope you're having a good day. You're tired? Yeah, I am too. I did not sleep great last night. It is, tough to sleep when, you can't breathe very well. And you've been suckered into a new game. The audacity. Sorry, all caps. No worries, it's fine. The Lion, the Witch, and the audacity of this bitch. They bought it for me, so it don't matter. What new game? Small Lands or something? It's kind of like Grounded or something. I'm just here. Fair. So Serafina tells Margaret they know who she is. They've been keeping track of her since they found out there was a connection between them. And so then Margaret ends up answering the question, tells her she hasn't seen Margaret or Helene for decades. But why would they be asking her that? And so Serafina tells her they've lost Helene. We were playing Enshrouded, which is my jam, but then we had to switch games. Did you, like, beat Enshrouded, or just, like, someone decided it's time to switch games? Or is Enshrouded, like, ending or something? You can call me Jon Snow, 'cause I know nothing. My jokes get even worse when I'm sick. No, the other people had to leave. Okay.
like this one.
Hi, hello, welcome in. Thank you for the follow. I'm probably going to butcher your name, so you can tell me what you would like to be called. Tornia? Bad with names. But, anyway, hi, hello, welcome in. Hope you're having a good day. Welcome. Yeah, that's good. Ooh, nice. I'm glad I got somewhat close. Uh, Alright, so Seraphina reveals they've lost Helene. They can't find her location. Margaret asks what that means. Seraphina looks at Letitia. Letitia tells Margaret, she cast a spell to keep anyone but her from being able to track Helene. So this is gonna recontextualize the previous scene, because Letitia's gonna say that she cast a spell to keep anyone but her from being able to track Helene, but she says in this sequence she can't sense her anymore. Your furry friends told me here is the place. Okay. Well, hi, hello, welcome in. So Margaret is kind of flip in her response. Saying, I don't know, this actually might be different then. Um, okay, so this is where we might put this part of that answer. Yeah, I think so. This is where Margaret would say she hasn't seen Helene for decades. And you come all the way out here to tell me you don't know where she is. Like, yeah, she would just be. This would strike her as odd. Yeah, this. Alright. So Serafina nods to Letitia, and she touches Margaret. That's how she's able to see things, to see what she's hiding. And we see flashes of what Margaret's been up to, meeting someone new, and we see flashes of their relationship. Went too far with that. So when we get back to the scene, Margaret looks cross at Serafina and Letitia for using their powers. Okay, so if they're not friends, she wouldn't confide in them about her doubts. Yeah, and some of this stuff I feel like would come up in the present day sequence. When Bryn comes back and tells Margaret that Helene is in danger. So we're just going to dump all that down here for right now, even though some of it actually this part we might keep up there. So Margaret tells them both to leave, Serafina and Letitia. Before she leaves, Serafina notes to Margaret, you don't have to be able... One sec. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Actually, I think Letitia would say this. That you don't have to be able to see the future, know what's coming. Lays out Margaret knows how it's going to end. She's ageless. Nearly is human and will age and die. Give me a sec. I will be right back. Sorry, I need to blow my nose again. I don't want to be sniffling in everybody's ears. So I'll be back in a minute. Major, as always, is in charge. Alright. I am back. Alright, so Margaret basically kicks out Serafina and Letitia. And as they're leaving, Nellie returns to see them leaving. And asks Margaret about them. Because I want to have a little bit of a sense of the dynamic between those two. And this is probably the only chance we have. So then Margaret's gonna tell her they're just people from a past life, life she left behind. So Nellie will take this as just like, oh, someone she knew when she was younger, not people, not powerful witches at the head of a group that she's known about for hundreds of years. So then we pick up that night after dinner. So then we jump ahead tonight. Margaret's sitting on the porch. Her conversation from earlier is on her mind. Nellie comes out of the ranch, seeing she's obviously has something on her mind, asks her about it. and Margaret kind of, I don't want to say comforts her necessarily, but just kind of says, like, you know, people coming from her past kind of made her reflect on her past, but you can't change the past, and she's happy here and now. And then I think we end it with something kind of romantic between them, like, or showing affection between them. Yeah. Keep hitting LA instead of LI. Um, okay. So Naomi sits with Margaret out on the porch, saying to enjoy the view of the stars wrapped under a blanket together. So this leads us into most likely a montage of the progression of Margaret's relationship with Naeli in its inevitable end, and Helene imprisoned, having to think because she's not able to do anything. Yeah, yeah. Actually, yeah, we'll just indent those because those are going to be montage and together. All right. Then we are on to our last section. I feel like we're in a good spot. Might be able to finish this tonight. Possibly. We'll try. Alright. So would Margaret stay there after Naeli dies? No. Yeah, I might have to think about exactly where she is, but yeah, she's living alone. She's on a farm. Bryn shows up. So we have two scenes back to back of Margaret on a farm or ranch, and then someone showing up to talk to her about Helene. So I feel like that might be too repetitive. Yes, Rad. Ranch dressing. You say not repetitive enough to ranch dressing? No people showing up to the ranch. I feel like it is just because it happens in back-to-back sequences, so I might have to think about a different way of having Margaret and Bryn's paths cross. So rather than having Bryn show up, having if I had a nickel for every time someone showed up to my ranch to tell me about Helene, I'd have 2 nickels. Exactly. But anyway, so we're in the present day. We need Bryn and Margaret in the same place, and Bryn to tell Margaret that she's found Helene and she's in danger. Okay, so her initial response. And Peggy said, I don't give a... Who's Peggy? Oh, Margaret, Peggy, yeah. Yeah. Margaret tells Bryn to go tell the Dianic Witches. After they showed up in the previous scene, they can help her. And Bryn tells her the hunters have captured all of the Dianic Witches. So Margaret says this isn't her fight, she just wants to live in peace. And that's where we're going to bring in this part from that we took out from the other section. Bryn would ask Margaret why she's given up after everything she's gone through, and Margaret would confide in Bryn with her doubts as she's been spending 200 years chasing after Helene. And brings up their previous conversation about how Margaret convinced her to find Helene. And Bryn tells her she forces the issue. She asks her if she's really happy living alone, middle of nowhere, and if she does nothing, Helene will definitely die. Yeah, this is still the biggest sticking point of this last sequence is how do we get Margaret to overcome her fear and set out on this final journey? Oh, okay. Sorry, putting puzzle pieces together. One sec. So in what is known as the hero's journey, that a lot of like major movies are based around, when the inciting incident happens, which happens early in the film, it's also known as, the call to action. And one of the things in the hero's journey is the refusal of the call. That initially the protagonist has to give in to their doubts and fears and not go initially on the journey. But ultimately, they have to go on the journey, or there's no story to be told. Um, so, if we think of this section as kind of a condensed version of that, Bryn showing up is kind of the inciting incident. Bryn showing up and telling Margaret that Helene's in danger is kind of a mini inciting incident, and we need Margaret to refuse the call. That was a long-winded way of saying Margaret needs to say no. So then Bryn... No. So Bryn initially... Who are you gonna call? Not me. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So, how we're gonna get Margaret to get over the hump of her fear is Bryn's initially her response is going to be, I can't force you to do this, it's your life. But then a third person, no. So before Bryn leaves, she's going to tell Margaret that she told Helene everything. So since we had Bryn in the previous scene with Helene, she did reveal to her the truth about Margaret. And so, if she tells Margaret this, it should break down Margaret's reluctance, because she no longer has all these secrets holding her back from her goal. So Bryn tells Margaret, I told Helene everything about you changing your face, about all the times you've seen her before. I think that might be enough for Margaret to be like, to get over that reluctance. Bryn says she has a plan. And I think Bryn saying she has a plan would mean more than just anyone saying it, because she's a seer, she can see the future, so she knows if the plan is likely to work or not. Alright, Major. Thanks for stopping by, hanging out. Hope you got some dubs in your pew-pews. And I will be talking to you later. Yeah, we're almost at 2 hours. So, yeah, we might just pause it here for the night. And then come back to this on Sunday with fresh eyes. Yeah, so we'll add some space here. So we'll come back here, go over this, make sure this all still tracks. Yeah, we can't stream without Major. And then go through the last section. And then, yeah, once we get through the outline, then we will start with the writing of the actual screenplay. So, that'll post at what? 17, 18 some days? I don't know. We'll get to it when we get to it. But, yeah, I think that's where we're going to call stream for tonight. Who do you want to rate tonight, Rad? You usually have an answer right away for that. You gotta think about it this time. Everyone left already? Yeah. Yeah, we can just end it here. That is fine. Yeah, once Major leaves, the party's over. Raid Fitty. Raid Fitty. Alright. We're raiding someone called Fitty. Yeah, we'll do that. If this goes horribly wrong, everyone can just blame it on Rad. Yeah, so that's stream for today. I'll be back Sunday afternoon. Like I said, hopefully we can finish the outline then. And then see how much time we have. We might start actually in on the screenplay. We got links to both these documents up in the Discord if anyone has ideas or notes they want to add. I'll add the picture from earlier of the cast that I was bored and made. I'll put that up on the Discord as well. And yeah, I appreciate everyone for stopping by, hanging out, chatting, lurking, all the things, all the stuff. I appreciate you all for hanging out and continuing to bear with me as I'm trying to get over being sick. Hopefully I sound better on Sunday, and yeah, I think that's everything I have. Appreciate you all. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye.